The Sean Payton era in Denver is starting this Sunday as they take on Jimmy Garoppolo and the new-look Las Vegas Raiders. Let's see if Russell Wilson will be able to bounce back from his season last year. Ryan and I are going to break down the entire game and make our predictions. But before we do that, if you have not already, be sure to like this video, leave a comment, and let us know who you think is going to win, and subscribe to the channel so you get notified whenever we create new content. It helps us out at reaching our goal of 3,000 subscribers by the end of the season, and it also helps out with the algorithm. That being said, Ryan, let's get into it here.
Let's do it.
I don't know about you. We were just talking about this before we went live. I have no clue what to expect with this game. How are the Raiders going to look? Because we said throughout the entire offseason, before free agency really kicked off, and the draft happened, and what the Raiders were going to end up doing. But how the Raiders were actually a decently solid team. They had so many one-score losses.
Yeah.
But I feel like the whole team changed.
Yeah, they totally just left their roster.
Made so many moves. And so the key faces are there, like Josh Jacobs. He signed a one-year deal. Devontae Adams is still there, and then Max Crosby. And I'm sure there's other specific role players that are there. I'm sure, and there's offensive linemen that stayed on as well, who had a really good year last year. But they just made, by far, the most free agent signings. And I just don't know what all to expect.
Well, yeah, and this, I think, might give away a little bit of my prediction, but this is kind of what Josh McDaniels did when he took over, actually, ironically, as the Broncos head coach back in I think it was 2011. It was completely flipped the roster over, had a good quarterback, a good wide receiver, and a decent team, completely flipped over the roster, and then the team slowly just kind of fell apart. And so history does tend to repeat itself. I am a little concerned that is what's happening here with the Raiders, as I've said kind of throughout the summer. But then I also think you look at the Broncos, and a lot of what they did, specifically revolving around Russell Wilson, seems to not be working out. Sean Payton is probably a future Hall of Fame coach, and I just don't know if what he brings to the table can make up for a lot of the faults and problems that they're having carrying over from last year. So it's going to be a really interesting game. I don't think we're going to learn anything about either of these two teams in this game, because you could make a case that the other team was just that bad, most likely. So
yeah, you could. We'll see. I'm curious to see how just both offenses work. Like I remember in week 1 last year against the Broncos team, they looked solid, but they just made so many mistakes and ended up losing the Seahawks. I think they had multiple fumbles on the 1-yard line. So look at things like that. In week 1, it's kind of really hard to tell because a lot of guys didn't really play too much of the preseason.
Yeah.
But I'll just look to see if Russell Wilson looks confident, if Jimmy Garoppolo looks confident, and see how these defenses look, because Denver's defense last year, even after trading Bradley Chubb, was pretty good. I actually here, let me pull up.
I'm pretty sure they were top 10. That's one thing too, is I think the Raiders defense was pretty good against the run, and they have a really good front seven, but I think their secondary is pretty weak as far as I remember.
Las Vegas Raiders gave up the 4th most passing yards last year, and then rushing yards, you are somewhat correct on that. They were 4th. They were middle of the road in rushing
14th.
yards.
Okay.
Yeah. Part of that, too, caveat, I will say, for both teams in the division. But that also being said, though, the Broncos didn't give up that many passing yards. They were 13th. But caveat, though, they do play the Chiefs and the Chargers twice. So that's 4 games against 2 of the top offenses in the league. So I kind of take that with a grain of salt, but I understand what you're saying. And that's where a lot of their acquisitions were on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary as well.
Mm-hmm.
Needed to beef up the defensive line front. Got Tyree Wilson as well. Very curious to see how he does. I am going to be leaning more and end up picking the Raiders. I feel now with Josh Jacobs coming back, I know he'll be well rested. So I think that they're going to kind of continue that role of feeding the ball to him. And I think Garoppolo, I think he kind of fits well into this Josh McDaniels system as a facilitator, because that's what he was in San Francisco. Could be completely wrong, but that being said, though, they do now have Devontae Adams. They have Jacoby Myers now. They do also have Hunter Renfrow as well in the slot. Then they also have Michael Mayer, who's a big target, rookie tight end. Then you have Josh Jacobs in the backfield. it's a similar type role of just kind of read the defense and just know like just make the smart throw. Just like don't have to do anything too crazy. You don't expect anything too flashy from Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's where I think he's going to shine. And I think he's going to be able to do that within this offense. It's going to be tough just because this Broncos defense is decently good, but at the same time, with all the injuries that happened to the receiving room in Denver, Javonte Williams, we don't know how well he's going to be able to bounce back, even though Denver did kind of revamp this offensive line. I still think it's just going to be shaky in the first game with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I was originally going to pick Denver, but after kind of like thinking it through, I do think the Raiders probably have a little bit more continuity on the offensive side of the ball with Josh Jacobs coming back. Jimmy G and Jacoby Myers have both played in the McDaniels system before, and so that should help, as well as Devontae Adams being there last summer. And I think you stack it up. Jerry Jeudy's questionable. Cortland Sutton is good to go. But then KJ Hamler's out. Marvin Mims looks like he's going to be making his start as a rookie. And so that's going to be interesting on both sides. But I'm going to pick the Raiders as well, kind of for the same reasons that you mentioned. So
okay, I like it. it. So it's going to be a fun game.
Yeah. No, it is. I'm looking forward to it. These 4:00 games so far, we have no idea on who's really going to win. I have a feeling that's going to change on the next one we review, which should be the Patriots and the Eagles. But before we start getting into that, we're going to go ahead and wrap this video up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on who you think is going to win this matchup in the AFC West, the Las Vegas Raiders or the Denver Broncos. Let us know down below. And other than that, we'll see you guys next time.